welcome back to the show. If you're new here, I'm your host, Sheen, and today we are joining from London. I hope you're as excited as I am because we have a special guest. I have actually brought back my Quran Club teacher from Oxford. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Saquab Ashraf. He is the founder of CEI UK, which we will learn about today. He is also an incredible human being. I've learned Surah Yusuf in depth with him. And he also has a PhD in Quranic studies, but he's an architect by training. We'll learn all about him today. So join me in welcoming him. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you?
I'm well. It's nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too.
You went away for too long.
Did you think 10 years ago that we would meet in these contexts where we'll be doing Islamic content online?
No, I just that's what life's about. You don't realize what's going to happen. And you look back at it, like Steve Jobs says, the dots join in really strange ways.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. Do you remember me in Quran Club?
Of course I do.
I was your first Quran Club, wasn't I?
In
Oxford, yeah.
I remember it. They were lovely, lovely days. We'd get together. It was only a small number of us, wasn't it?
We were a very small group.
And we'd actually get the Quran out.
Yeah.
I think I really liked, what I really liked about you guys in Oxford was we used to get pens and stickers.
And highlighter.
Highlighters, yeah. Which everyone knows, I'm talking about, where's your highlighters? When I do the Q Club in London in the cafe, a lot of people just sitting there having coffee. So I really loved it in Oxford. Everyone was taking notes.
Yeah.
It's very inspiring for me to see that. So yeah, definitely. How am I going to forget that?
You know, I still have my book and it's changed color because of how many highlighting there is in it. It's at home in Mauritius, but it's still there.
I've got my first Quran that I studied with Professor Abdul Halim in 2005 when it came out, because I used to study with him. There's been two of us in the class, and I've got my notes on there. There's not a lot, because at that time I was like, you can't take notes.
Yeah, you can't write. Yeah.
Criticize others, but I was just like them. I was writing the pen. So that first Quran that you ever make notes on is really special, isn't it?
It is, mashallah. So you did your PhD in Quranic studies, right?
Yes.
At Oxford. But you're also an architect.
Yeah.
By training.
Yeah, I'm still a practicing architect. Hence the shirt and tie.
You got the day job.
Yeah, I do that full time. Yeah. So that's been the challenge. And that's one of the challenges of doing stuff like this, because obviously I have a lot of clients and what have you and all that. And all this is just I'm still on the voluntary phase. So this is really passive. So I have to do the work during the day to kind of like
the day job always gets priority.
Yeah. So
it's okay.
Yeah.
It's fun.
So my PhD was part-time, which they struggled with in Oxford because they're not used to part-timers.
No, you did your PhD part-time?
Yeah, it took me 8 years to do it, yeah. Yeah, at a faculty.
8 years?
Yeah. Wow. I started in 2010 and finished in 18, yeah.
Were you based in Oxford when you're doing your part-time?
No, I used to come in. So that's why I used to do the Q Club. I used to come in, I used to try my best to take a day off work. It was my own practice, but take a day off, come in and do a little bit of study. And then in the evening, I wanted to, my way of kind of like giving back. I was so grateful that I had this chance to do the PhD, so I should kind of like try and give something back. So that's why I used to do that.
So when we were doing Q Club, that was when you were doing your PhD?
Yeah. I was doing Q Club.
What year did you start?
I started in 2010, actually.
Oh, I matriculated in 2011.
Okay, but I remember you in sort of 14, 15.
Yes, it was my final years that I came.
Yeah, I don't remember in the beginning years. I mean, in the beginning years, I never actually used to do Q Club. I used to do more, because I studied originally kind of Arabic in Yemen, and I used to do quite like sort of, verse by verse, traditional type of tafsir.
Right.
And then about 2012, I remember a teacher didn't come to a class, and he was like, and I just step in. And I had my old teacher, Professor Abdul Halim's translation, so I just quickly put that up on screen, and I just read through it with the students. There's about 35, 40 students.
Wow.
And I did Moses' story, and everybody was just like gripped and engaged. And I thought to myself, this is what people need, because the other way when I was doing verse by verse and saying this word in Arabic could mean this, and it's got 5 meanings, that only land with like a certain type of people. But reading a book like the way we're trained to read a book in our schooling and education, it really landed. So that's when I changed my teaching, even in Oxford ISOC, to the Q Club. That's why 2014 I started the Q Club.
Yeah, I was your first batch of Q Club, I think.
So.
Right?
I think so, yeah.
Do you remember our surah?
Yusuf.
Yeah.
I always start with Yusuf wherever I go first.
Why?
Because it's the easiest surah in the Quran for new people to kind of get into, for a couple of reasons. One, because it's a complete story, because the Quran doesn't present a complete story like we did yesterday. It's fragmented and all over the Quran, but Yusuf is only in one place. Secondly, the Quran rarely presents a linear story. So it cherry picks stories from great individuals in the past, and then it plugs them into Surah, where it's part of the wider argument.
Right.
Whereas Joseph, it starts linear when he's young,
It's chronological,
all
right?
the way through, which is how we're trained in the West to read. You have like a beginning, a middle, and an end. So that's why it's easier to like, for people that aren't trained in the Quran, you're not dotting around and you kind of like read it. So I always do Joseph kind of like first.
Yeah, I remember we did it for the whole year.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I should try and do was, the aim was to do like a paragraph, like a session, and just kind of read it. Like, when you do GCSE English and you're like, what's the author saying it? Why is he saying it? Why this style here? And then perhaps open up to a discussion. I think we should have a little bit of a discussion, but probably not as much as I wanted. So so then it's just contemplative, and it was good. It was for me, because then it gave me because there's certain surahs I teach like on a day course or short course, but I always have one surah that I study, which I'm teaching, but for myself I'm studying it. So I do like a yearly kind of meditation on it.
Right.
So I do that. So, and actually what I used to do was, if you knew the system, I used to do London first, the Q Club, and then I would teach in Oxford. So I'd actually meditate on it for 2 years. That's what So if you look at the Q Club, it's 1 year behind London. And I used to do it in Soho. Actually in London, I was in Yumcha in Soho. So the year before I taught that in Soho, then I'll teach it a second time to kind of solidify it in my, try and solidify my sort of like, in my being, so to speak. So,
wow. And at what point did CEI come through?
So CEI started in the sort of like, I'd say sort of the mid 90s. So, and it was born out of like my father was quite active in the community, and he was very much about like, we need to get educated, go to university. Now I think everyone kind of goes to university. In those days it was like a
right.
It was like an emphasis. So what we used to actually do was we'd go to the local mosque and we'd teach maths and English. Now that's quite common as well, but those days it wasn't that common. So CEI started from that. So the actual name CEI used to be Crawley Education Institute. And one of our teachers said to us at that time, he said, people have all these grand names and, like Abu Bakr Siddiq, like this. And he said, just have simple names and just, it's what you do that's important. So we were like, we're from Crawley, so that's near Gatwick. Education's really important.
Yeah.
And we were nowhere near an institute, but we thought we needed an institute. So it's CEI, so it's Crawley Education Institute. And we had no aim to build an institute. And it's really like, internally looking back at it, like sort of 30 years now, like the fact we're now trying to get an institute in sort of Bloomsbury in central London. It's like, sometimes you don't even know if you would just say something remotely sincerely, it just takes, so now, we'd never had a name to like, set up an institute, just like CEI, Crawley Education Institute. So, yeah.
Wow. And
so we should do that actually. So we should did that for like a long time. And we still do that till today actually. So we still teach on Saturdays, we teach in school, we teach maths, English, and I teach a little bit of translation of the Quran. We had a few of us, did you meet Hifsa yesterday?
Yeah.
So she came when she was
She said, I'm a CEI child.
Yeah, so she
was
went all
raised.
the way through. Yeah, she went through the whole system.
And she's a lawyer now.
She's a lawyer. And Mukarram was there yesterday. He came, I always say this about him, he gets really, he doesn't get upset, but he laughs at it. I had real high hopes for him. He was really into Latin and he used to love my class. He used to get a bus after we finished the kids' classes because the parents would force them to come. And then when they're 16, they were free. But he actually enjoyed it so much. He used to get a bus. He used to get 2 buses to come back to my kind of Quran classes.
Aww.
Which at the age of 16 is quite telling,
It's very young, yeah.
And for them to spend like £3 or £4 is a big deal. So he'd come to that and he'd be like, I love this. And it's like my Latin classes. And he said, I want to study classics at Cambridge, where you went. I was like, wow, that's amazing. I was really nurturing him. And then when it came to filling out your UCAS forms, the dad stepped in and guess what he studied? Medicine. So he ended up studying medicine. But he was there yesterday and he's a qualified doctor now. And he said he wants to feed back and move back and help us out. So we've had quite a few people that have kind of come through. And it's really important for us that they, people do well in the exams and they go to university and they just go into the best way of helping society is once you can help yourself. You can't help others if you can't help yourself. So if you've got a good job, you can navigate things, you're stable. So yeah, there's it happens to me quite often in London. I'm walking around and people say, do you remember me? And I said, don't. I said, you used to teach me like maths,
oh, wow.
20 years ago. Or once I was at a cash machine in Russell Square And I thought someone was going to mug me because I was thinking, and he started tapping me on the shoulder. And I turned around, he goes, do you know me? And I said, no. And I said, well, what do you want?
Take it all. My money?
Yeah, take my bag as well. And he goes, no, you should teach me. And he goes, I'm at LSE or something. I was like, wow, subhanAllah. You know?
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. But now that you've mentioned this, dealing with the youth, right? And I think that's a very important question, because even me now, I see a lot of my friends are struggling with their relationship with the faith. And I think we're now turning into all these new gurus, where they're talking about wellness, fitness, do this, do that. And you mentioned a few of them yesterday as well. But then there is so much in the Quran that can guide the young Muslims, but there is this big disconnect. And how have you been approaching that to make sure that, the youth stay connected
to it? I think when I was talking about Makaram as like a really good example is, I think human beings love stories, like I was saying yesterday. And that's why Netflix is one of the biggest companies in the world and stuff. And the Quran's full of stories. And actually, if you study them properly, you'll see a lot of amazing films that kind of have the same sort of shifts as the stories they have in the Quran, especially Moses. So I think teaching people those stories is like, one, just getting them interested and gripped onto it. But the lessons that the Quran teach for the youth, that's really important, I think, is, and one of the things I think the youth feel is alienated, and they don't know how to kind of fit into communities where they belong, especially in a global world with social media. And one of the things the Quran's saying, just trying to hammer in yesterday in Oxford, is this idea of like my people. So being comfortable, like when Joseph, we did Yusuf, when he was in prison, he used to always say, my fellow prisoners, even though he was an innocent man in prison. He didn't say, you criminals, you're a criminal. You don't have to say it, but your body language can say that, you're criminals, and I'm actually the grandson of Abraham. And my father was a prophet, and his father was a prophet, and his prophet was Abraham. He didn't have that chip on his shoulder. He totally kind of like melted into prison life, and he did good. And he was amongst the people. He wasn't like, I'm amongst bad people, and I'm going to, create all my own ghetto communities and proselytize. He was part of people. So I think the youth need to understand that it's okay to be Muslim and to be a part of like dominant culture. The main thing is to be connected to God and to do good. And whatever good you can do. Even Joseph, when he comes out, he actually he comes out and he works in a non-Muslim government.
Yeah.
And he's like, he rises to such power and he benefits everyone. You know what I mean? So he understands what my people is. When he's in prison, actually only makes 2 du'as in that surah, if you remember. One when he's in prison, when he's at his lowest point, and the second one when he's like literally the king of the world.
Yeah.
And he kind of bows down, and he's reunited with his father. So, the youth need to understand that it's okay to be wherever God's put you is good to be there. Assimilate, don't get to eyes, don't kind of go inward, and just be a good Muslim. To be a Muslim doesn't mean you have to dress like somebody in the East or the West or whatever it is, or you have to behave or use even those languages. Allah says in the Quran that we send a message in the tongue of the people, speak like the people, behave like the people, go out with people at lunch, evening, all these things. And they sound like common sense, but honestly, I think a lot of youth are grappling with those things that I see. They see a disconnect between their family, the mosque, their work, and like their neighbors and the community. And the Quran's just, I think, is teaching, saying wherever you are, you assimilate in the best way possible. Sometimes you go to family gatherings and people are so religious, they're like, when you're in the family, you're with the family. When you're with your neighbors, you're with your neighbors. When you're at work, you're with the people at the work. And that's something very Islamic about that. And the Quran's teaching, that's what Joseph's teaching. When you're with prisoners, you're in, you're with them and you do good you can do there. So sorry, I'm going on a bit, but
no. But on that point, and you mentioned it earlier as well, that you have a day job, that's your main gig, and then we do this on the side. And this conversation came up a few times yesterday at the retreat, even with Arig, where she was telling me, I'm a software engineer, but that's like my day job that can fuel what I actually want to do, which is CEI. And I think it's important for the youth to realize that even if you want to do good, sometimes you need to do what the worldly world needs you to do.
Yeah.
Because that's how you get a seat at the table where you can bring about change, where
Exactly.
they need us to be part of that conversation. But if we refuse to participate, then how do we get there to change anything?
Exactly. And more than that, that's what you said, you don't have the skill set. If you can't even I said yesterday, we do Q read in Rosewood or in Lanesborough. How do you book that room? it requires, you need to have to drop an email, meet
Right.
the person that works there. They're not going to be from your ilk of Islamic thought and the way you think and the same madhab. So you need to know how to interact with people. A lot of people ask me when they come back and they've spent, a number of years studying, say, look, what advice do you give us? We want to do like Islamic work. Honestly, I say just get a job, 9 to 5, and you've got to do at least 2 or 3 years of that. And that's the best way you can help the deen, because what it'll do is the first thing is you're starting to understand how people operate, what people's kind of like needs are, and the skill set that you gain from like being in that sort of, if you hang around the same type of people, then it's like that echo chamber, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you're at work, there'll always be a few idiots at work that you don't like, and a few nice people like, they'll be in your team.
Yeah.
So all those are really important skill sets. So, and that's one of the reasons why I've been fighting so hard to keep my job, because I feel like that architecture and just like, like working with my colleagues and working with clients and going around and seeing them and just having a cup of tea with them, it just makes you makes you a richer person.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But even for me, I feel like when I went to the UK to study, and when people ask you a question about, oh, why do you practice Islam? Why are you Muslim? Is when you have to articulate those answers is when you actually think about it. Because if you're just in the middle of Muslims all the time, you won't even ask, why do I actually believe in this?
You won't do. I think sometimes Muslims have this thing where they think they're in dawah mode and non-dawah mode. And I think that's a big problem. You just have to be, like we're talking about the Quran saying, just be normal, live your life, but just your heart should be connected to God and let your heart speak, you know what I mean? And, you remember God, you talk, whatever conversation is, we were taught by our teachers, if you go to a conversation, you don't go and try and steal that conversation. Let the conversation where it's going. If it's going the wrong direction, you can keep quiet. If it's, really problematic or something, then you have to somehow either remove yourself. So how often do you come to a conversation like that where someone's saying, oh, I want to do something like rob a bank or kill, no one does that. So you can just be quiet, and when it's good, you kind of feed into it. So, but I think a lot of Muslims struggle with that. They're like, they're in like dawah mode or they're in like normal mode. You're actually be connected to God 24/7 wherever you are.
Right.
So, yeah.
But okay, so now on the way here, I was watching this reel, and it was this this old lady who grew up as Jewish but is now agnostic, and she was talking about she wrote the book The Story of Muhammad. I don't know if you've read it.
No, I haven't. No.
She's called Leslie Hazelton.
Okay.
And
it's a book for me to read now.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, wonderful woman. And she says that the problem with the Quran is that people don't spend time reading it and understanding it. And she said there are two groups of people that misuse the Quran. The first one are people who are Islamophobic and they don't know much about it. They've only heard extracts.
Yeah.
And the second group are the hardcore Muslims that use the Quran to beat other Muslims into observance.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, I've never seen it put that way. And her main takeaway was, if you want to understand Muslims, read the Quran. It's all in there. And you will see that it is much bigger than what all of us assume it is. And that's exactly what you teach as well. And I thought, subhanAllah, this happened at the best time when I was coming here to prepare to talk to you. And you talk a lot about reading the Quran to understand it rather than just reading it and reciting it. And tell us the importance of reading to understand.
I mean, first of all, what you just said there was just an amazing summary, really, about like, this is why it's being so nice being around, educated people. You read a book coming in, not just like, talking whatever it is. So that's an amazing summary, by the way, because that's exactly what happens. The Islamophobes use it. Often, actually, the truth is they don't even use the Quran. They use other traditions and think it's the Quran.
Right.
So they'll like attribute. They
like
just mix
culture,
up culture, or sometimes it might even be hadith or something. The Quran is quite difficult to like. I mean, obviously there are, some statements in there that people need to grapple with, and it takes time to understand. But they're not a lot. It's usually outside that. So that's put that to one side. The other side, the Muslims. One of my teachers said to us, one of the big problems we've got as Muslims is we do an action and we justify it through the Quran, rather than what you're talking about is you read to understand. So actually the action should be inspired by, it's like knowledge first and then you act, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what we do is we do what we want to do because we think it's right and our group's doing it and we're kind of Islam. And the classic example of that is take it as like, Islamic societies or mosques or events. You do a poster, and then you find an ayah to put on the poster.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
Right.
It should be the other way around. The Quran's asking you to do something. Now let's design a poster. And how do we get that out? If you go to like a marketing company, that's the way they operate. So we operate backwards. So that's picking up exactly on like what you're saying over there. So why is it important to read the Quran and understand it? In every tradition, you go to a great university, all they do is to teach you how to read. You go to Oxford, you went to Cambridge, you've been everywhere, you know. What do you learn there? You learn how to read a book. And we say, I've never met a Muslim in my life who hasn't said the Quran's the most important book and it's got all the solutions and got all the slogans, but we can't read it to understand it. And then we actually justify that thinking that, oh, you know what, you need to study Arabic. Arabic's the hardest language. You need 25 years studying grammar. And basically you just set up a roadmap of why you can't understand the Quran. Whereas Professor Abdul Halim, my old teacher and the translator, he's like, you can read the Quran in English and you can kind of understand it as well. So we need to read to understand. And you've got all these, Iqra institutes, read like institute. I was looking at the word read in the Quran, it only comes 3 times, read.
Twice, I remember you teaching us this.
Twice it comes in the opening, in the first time the Quran was revealed. And for 23 years the Quran was revealed, the word read was never repeated. The next time the word read comes is read your book of deeds on the day of judgment. And you know what comes in between all that? Reflect about it, think about it. Have you not pondered the Quran? Have you not reflected on it? And Sheikh Hamza did that really good talk on Dr. Adler's book, How to Read a Book. That's what you're taught to like, how you dissect what the author's saying, and these are basic skills you're taught at GCSE English. We're not doing that with the Quran. Even our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the first revelation was Iqra, but the third revelation, if you believe the chronology of the Quran coming, it was to not read, it was tartil, which is like slow, deliberative reflection of the Quran. I mean, look at these in your own time, these verses. I think there's opening verses, I think 73, Surah 73. And it says, read the Quran, rattil, not read, and read it at night. And the reason why you should read it at night, because you won't be preoccupied by the heaviness and the tasks of the day. So it's time to contemplate. Like, when we were in Oxford yesterday, everybody was saying to us, we sat on a bench. I went there with a bench with my wife as we sat, and she goes, oh, it's just, you just want to get a book here and just read, isn't it? I mean, you know that, isn't it? Like when you go to when you're in Cambridge is probably even more.
You go by the river.
What do you want to do?
Just take a book out.
And you want to read, isn't it? You know what I mean? But you don't want to read when you're in like, like on a tube and there's 20 people in your face. So that's
on the way to a meeting,
Exactly. So the Quran, that's where we're learning, that's where we're doing our Quran hires and all that. It's saying read when you've got space. So, it's saying doing it at night, but you need to create those spaces where you can read. You know what I mean? Where you enjoy reading, where you've got that space to read. So anyway, the point is, a long-winded answer, is the Quran's very clearly saying that you need to reflect about the Quran and study it and think about it. Even in English, sorry, just one last point I'm going on here. No, even in English, read is to ruminate. And ruminate, it talks about like when they chew the cud. And what they do is, I don't know if you know this or not, so when they eat their food, what they do is they chew it, it goes down into the stomach, then they throw it back up
comes
again.
Back.
Then they chew it a second time, then it kind of comes back and you chew it up. So reading is the same thing. What you actually have to do is you read something, you think about it, digest it. The Quran saying in the heart, not in the stomach. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Have they not contemplated the Quran? Am ala kulubin akfalawa, or have their hearts got a lock? So you contemplate it in the heart, you let it rest for a period of time, whether it's weeks, days, month, and then you throw it back up and you think about it again. And that should be a constant process that you do over your life, really. And that's what reading is. You read a book, and a good book is a book that you don't read once. A bad book is, even a good movie, not that I'm into movies, is a movie you can watch a number of times, isn't it?
Of course,
Isn't it? If you just want, it's just plastic, isn't it? So an ayah is like that. You need to, reading means you'll be able to read it many, many times.
So, this is more advice for parents, but also generally for young people who might feel, this sounds like a lot of work. How do we simplify it for them in terms of where can they start if someone feels like they have only read the Quran, they've never really spent time understanding it? How would that look like in terms of a routine?
I mean, that's such a good question. I think that's what that's why you need, systems of education, isn't it? To teach that. I mean, the first thing I'll say is in any study, why you study with a teacher is because they help you, they teach you how to prioritize things and to break things into smaller parts. Even our Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, didn't get the Quran in one go. Gabriel didn't come down and say, here's the book.
There you go.
There you go, and get on with it. It took 23 years, and it would come piecemeal. And Surah Furqan talks about why it happened. Chapter 25, it would come down at appropriate times. The same with the kids. You can't shoehorn it all in. There's no time limit that within a year, you start in September, you must finish the Quran by July, then you're going to get a PlayStation or whatever it is.
Right.
There should be a slow process. First thing is in the kids create a love to want to read it and enjoy it. And that's what I was talking about yesterday, is give them stories that they can relate to, they can enjoy reading, not books about the Quran. Because some of those books, even the ones on Noah that we did, they don't really understand the Quran. They've written books on it and they present Noah as a prophet of punishment, for example.
Yeah.
But read the Quran itself. You see his what he's about, the mercy in there. So introduce kids to smaller texts of Quran and creating them a desire. So when they get older, they've got more kind of, they've developed their faculties. They can kind of carry on studying with it. So I think that's the way with the kids. And what we do, and I can just talk about my own example, I'm not saying it kind of works, is we do every Saturday, we do GCSE maths, English, and then Quranic studies. But the Quranic studies is like English GCSE. So we use the same kind of skills that you need for an English GCSE. So we get kids. So for example, I'll choose a surah every year in the same way. We'll read it. I'll teach them how to take notes on it, commentary on it, and then I'll give them an essay question every term. And what's odd is I'll give them the essay question the week before. So we brainstorm the essay question, we brainstorm the answer, we brainstorm how to structure it, and then I'll say you can bring your notes in. Because when I was in architecture school, there were certain exams that were open book. And I'm from the hood. So when you have to open book must be so easy, but it's actually harder because you can take all your notes, but you only got half an hour to write an essay. You need to plan and know what to write about. So these sort of things are required with the kids. And that's one of the reasons why it's important to, so in summary, the answer to the parents is, the simple one is buy an English translation of the Quran. No kids that I see when I start the kids classes, I say, can you bring an English translation of the Quran? It takes them 3 or 4 weeks just to get that. The parents, so just buy a translation of the Quran. I think Abdul Halim's one is the best for this type of study. I'm not saying it's the best translation, but for this type of open access individual study, it's free flowing. The English is appropriate to our context. So buy that translation. And then in those, use the stories of the great prophets, generally Moses and Joseph. Just read those surahs, like chapter 20, chapter 26 is a good one, Surah Shu'ara, Qasas, this chapter on the story, just read that one. We did that in QI last year, and the kids will love it. Honestly, I'm not just saying this, there's no incentive. I've tried and tested it for 25 years. The kids will fall in love with it, you know what I mean? And they'll come, will a 16-year-old, unless they're exceptional, they're not really going to keep coming back, you know what I mean, to a maths tutor, are they, of their own volition, after they've done the thing. So this was proof that they actually got, it's quite addictive.
It is. Yeah. Even me, 10 years later, I'm still going to Q Club.
Oh my God. Yeah. But you're a good girl, aren't you?
No, of course. But now again, another thing, and this is more, honestly, I'm asking for my own personal self. One thing I struggle with is, I talk about a lot of Islamic content online, and you do get Muslims that come to you being a little bit judgmental and being a little bit demanding in terms of how you practice your religion. And there is that whole argument that Islam is a religion where you should correct each other and we guide each other, but people don't really know how to do it. And because of that, I've seen a lot of people stepping away from being too public about being Muslim or talking about the religion. And I live in a Muslim country in the UAE, and still there, people will always shy away from entering a conversation about Islam just because of the repercussions that you get, because you might not be the perfect Muslim.
Yeah.
How would you advise us to tackle with that? You've got years of experience with being a public open figure about being Muslim.
I think there's two ways. One is the people that are attacking and trying to correct. Everyone wants to correct everybody else, but nobody wants to correct themselves. Even in the Quran, it says, you were sent to it says to do good and to forbid evil. So the way to, even when you see a wrong, the way to actually correct it is by doing good. So when there's darkness, you create light. And actually, where there's a lot of darkness, even a flicker of light can light the whole room up, can't it? Where there's a lot of light, a candle ain't going to do anything. But if you're in the midst of darkness, just one good act that you do yourself can have a profound effect. So people should be concerned with their own state. They should be harsh with themselves and soft on other people. So I personally, I'm not saying this is right. This is just the way I've been taught by my family and by my teachers. It's not our job to be like, if something is blatantly problematic or something, then there's ways to do that. And not only is there ways to do it, there's people to do it as well. It's not everyone's task to do that, It's like, a doctor, it's a job of a doctor to like deal with like patients that are sick. I might want to help out. Like sometimes you're going on the street and someone's ill. There's no point. I want to help them out, but I can't go and help. I'm not a doctor.
Right.
But like, if there's someone with me who's a doctor is helping out, you can come there and you can be supportive. So you have to know who you are. Have you got the skills to correct things? By correcting things, are you making things better or worse? The hadith even says, like, if you change something, that you have to think about, like, there's no point correcting that small wrong and creating a bigger problem. That's on your head as well. So, I mean, from that perspective, it's really obvious to me is people should be concerned about themselves. If they see something that's problematic, they should strive double as hard in themselves. And Imam al-Ghazali actually talks about this. He said, like, when you intermingle with people, he said, he actually said there's three types of people. There's people that that you gain sustenance from, nourishment from. There's another type of people that are like medicine, you only go to when you need them. And there's another type of people that are like illness, and there's nothing you can do about it. They're like illness, but you have to deal with them. And he said one of the lessons you learn from people like that is if they've got these bad habits, you learn that you learn from that for yourself. So I shouldn't be like that. So if that's really, instead of like trying to correct them, you're like, well, you know what, I should always, because everybody slips up, what I mean? So I shouldn't be like that. So my training is always that you look at yourself and you're concerned with yourself. The person on the other side who's at the face of this is really hard for them, but they have to take example from the greats like Noah, and peace be upon him, and our messenger, peace be upon him. And I think these other people need to understand that words hurt more sometimes than actually actions. That's what Allah says in Surah Yasin to the prophets, "Fala yazunka qawluhum," don't be upset by what they say, because obviously they'll be brokenhearted inside, So people should be very careful, like on DMs and on like, just putting stuff out. And, people, they don't realize it. For them, they're just like two lines, but that can break someone's heart. And they can, and they're doing, 10% not good, 90% good. And if they stop the whole thing, then you're actually accountable for all of that good that you've done. So you always kind of like hold back. And then also writing is really difficult, isn't it? You've got to be trained to write. And usually, so I really believe people shouldn't be correcting people. Writing in books is really hard, but on WhatsApp and DMs and social media, you should not be correcting people on that sort of stuff, because I'm not a social media person. You probably know this more, but I don't think that usually yields results. It normally exacerbates the situation.
Of course.
Because, how can you write something meaningful or articulate because it's not what you say, like Rumi says, it's the tone, isn't it?
Right.
And tone is training. Like words have an energy. Like people in advertising, they know even in Arabic, words have an energy. You know what I mean? And they have a spiritual power to them as well. And advertisers know that. You know what I mean? Like Coke, taste the feeling. You know what I mean? They know. You know what I mean? Like I'm already feeling it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I want Coke now. You know what I mean?
Right.
They know how to use words. It takes some years of research to use those three words. We just like, on the phone, just send, and you're creating a lot of problems. So I don't know if that's that's my view on it. It's like, look, concentrate on yourself, and if you're on the receiving end, then you just have to take example from these great prophets and say, you know what, you are going to have people that are like illness. Allah says in the Quran anyway to the prophet in Surah Furqan that for every messenger, we create an enemy. So there's always, you can't eliminate those people. If a messenger can't eliminate it, then how are you going to eliminate it? And if you look at Moses, he had Pharaoh was a problem. Once Pharaoh died, it wasn't like he was living life in bliss. He had other problems.
Yeah.
He had internal problems. There's Qarun, there's this. So life is just, you're always going to have people opposing you, and I haven't got the ability to do that. I'm not strong enough. But you've got to be strong enough and take lessons from messengers to be able to keep going and not let you down. If you're doing good, no one's perfect apart from messenger. So if you're doing majority good, if you're 51% good and 49% not good, you just keep going and have an intention just to improve on it. So when people are attacking, you say, look, I'm doing this for the sake of God, I have to keep going. And the people attacking should be concerned more about themselves.
I agree. And I think at the end of the day, as you said, it's all about intentions. If you know your intentions are pure, then You don't have to worry, and it's okay. Some people can be a bit annoyed. It's okay. Going back to CEI, so we were at this retreat this weekend. And one thing I've always found really special, even with Q Club back when I was a student, is the community aspect to it. It's beautiful to finally, especially for us who live in the West, and then you rarely find people who are similar to you as a Muslim. And why do you think it's important, especially in the understanding of the Quran, why a community aspect to that makes it more special?
Okay, so our religion is all community. In the Fatiha is Iyaka na'budu wa Iyaka nasta'in. It's not you I worship and you I seek for help. It's you we worship and we ask for help. So community is really important. And we've been taught this as kids, and everyone knows this, and I'm repeating, but we need praying in a community, like praying in Jama'ah gives you more reward because you're part of a community. You need support structure. If I talk about my architecture, I know there's no way I could have graduated as an architect if I didn't have my friends around me.
Right.
There's no way, you know what I mean? Because it's too hard a course, it's too difficult. And it's not only just the actual work and the theory, you need that support, don't you? Of people
the mental
around you.
Support,
yeah. Exactly. And you want to feel like you're part of a group. We did yesterday, Noah, peace be upon him. That's Allah giving the Prophet, peace upon him, that he's part of this body of people and they've gone through the same challenges as you. You need a community to be able to do anything. And no man's an island. You can't do things on your own. So you need help around you. And that's arrogance to think you can do things on your own. So creating a community is the most important thing that you can kind of do, and getting people together. Even in the Quran, reflecting that verse that we did, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ, have they not reflected on the Quran? In Arabic, that word there is used as dubur. And in Yusuf, Surah Yusuf, when the shirt's ripped from behind, he's running, same root word is used, that it's ripped from behind. And why does Allah say, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ? That the back, because you can't do it on your own. Like when you scratch your back, I scratch my back, you scratch my back, I scratch your back,
yeah?
Because you can't do it on your own.
You can't.
So you can't reflect on your own.
Wow.
You got to reflect with people. So you have to, and that then is really important. The Fatiha teaches you got to reflect. You need to have the guides of the people, Allah said in Fatiha, and amta alayhim, people that have passed away, that Allah blessed. So they're the great prophet. So you reflect. That's a community you need to connect back into. They're alive in the Quran, for example. So you reflect with them. And then there's your current people around you. You need to reflect around. So for us at CEI, we couldn't do yesterday. One of the things we always call it an immersion rather than retreat, because we hate this idea of we're not running away from anything. You know what I mean? But people we're running away from work and this is haram and that's good. No, it's all good. We're just creating a bit of space to be immersed for 2 days. You know what I mean? So that's one way that we look at it. But if Mubin wasn't there and Imran wasn't there and Faisal and Dr. Hassan and Sabah, my family, if my family didn't support me, how would I be able to do this?
Right.
So without a community, you can't do it. If the community doesn't, not everybody, no one can do, no one can do everything, but you can do something, isn't it? So if everyone does something, that something together becomes cumulative. You know what I mean? And
teamwork.
And the other thing Shaitan makes you think is what's the point? It's what's the point of me giving £1? But if 1 million people give £1, it's a lot, isn't it? So what's the point of me giving just 10 minutes? But it actually means, what does Prophet said, smiling is charity. When you're doing this work, if people just don't abuse you and just smile. I was in Oxford yesterday, I was walking and there was drums playing, I don't know if you saw it or not.
I saw the fair.
Yeah. But outside the fair, there was a protest.
Oh, yeah,
against that oil rig.
I saw it.
So they stopped me. So I spoke to the woman and everything, and she told me what they were doing. And I said, look, you know what, keep up the good work. And she got really happy, you know what I mean? If they're doing good work and they're trying to protect the environment, if you can't give them your time and your money, give them a good word.
Yeah, support them a little bit.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit there and argue with them actually, not building a Quran oil rig is not that important. We're teaching the Quran, come around the corner doing the Quran. It's just silly, isn't it?
Right.
You know what I mean? They're doing good work, support them on the good work. You know what I mean? In my view, that's not as important as what I'm doing. And same with other people. You just give people good work and encourage people. We need to encourage each other so that we can, as a community, we can do more. Because, I can do what I do, you do what you do. If people are criticizing, what they're basically doing by criticizing is they can't do what they want you to do, and they're telling you to still do it. If you think about it, it's double whammy stupidity, isn't it? That's why the Quran's actually saying, if you think what they're doing is wrong, then you do it. to lead by example. You know what I mean? It's like, you forbid, but you do good, and that's what forbids the evil. You create light, that's what gets rid of darkness. But what we do is we fight the darkness. I hope I'm not going. Cut me off when you need to.
Please.
I mean, there's one of the stories our teachers taught us. He said, one of the problems is people are trying to combat and fight shaitan. So and he gave a metaphor. He said it's a story that some of the saints mentioned. It was a story. They said a king invited someone to a banquet. When he was coming to the banquet, he said he got close, and the king obviously has walls and
the
guards and all that. He had dogs outside, and he said he couldn't get in. So he said every time he'd come close, the dogs would bark at him and they'd go for him. He said he could sit there just fighting the dogs all the time. But he said, or the other thing he could do, he could ring the king up and say, I'm here.
Let me in.
Let me in. And he said the king then tells the guards, can you put the dogs away? Opens the door and he walks straight through. So shaitan is not stronger than God, is he? So our job is not to fight shaitan. Our job is to connect to God. Our job is not to correct all the evils in the world. Our job is to connect to God. And in so doing, we are correcting the evils. And that is a really, really important thing to do. And because you're fighting that, it's very clever. You're wearing yourself down, you're wearing the other person down, and you're not looking at the bigger picture.
Oh, I love that. Dr. Saquab, one thing you do is simplify everything in a way where the message just hits. I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing that.
It's not mine. A teacher taught it to me. So
I know, but the fact that you shared it with us is incredible. And this is why we're super excited about the idea of opening the center, right? Tell us a little bit about the plan for that.
Okay, so the center is, we moved into, I'm from Crawley, so a little town outside London, and we moved into London to start doing classes, and we want to be in zone 1. We thought it was really important to be in these public spaces, so that's accessible. Anybody can come in. We're not judgmental. CEI is not judgmental. You'll see that.
Not at all.
And one of the most beautiful things people say is, we come, no one ever says you can sit where you want, do what you want. You can go in, come out. You know what I mean? We're not trying to create a cult or anything. People just come in, do what they want and benefit. And that's really, and being in zone 1, we thought zone 1 is accessible. We're next to Euston for a reason. The Eurostar moved from Waterloo to King's Cross, and they moved to King's Cross. We've got Tube Strike at the moment because it's really accessible to kind of get to. So we were when we moved in 2009, we put our classes right in Euston. It's right next to Bloomsbury, the educational hub of London. UCL is there, SOAS is there, Birkbeck is there, LSE is around the corner. So we were we need to be in these kind of important spaces. And I believe that's actually prophetic, to be in these important spaces. The first issue is you need to be in an accessible public space, whereas mosques oftentimes can be closed. I mean, I'm going off a bit of a tangent here. I was designing a mosque, and I was working as the architect inside the mosque. I did a whole year where I was designing the mosque and working on it. And one day I was working, and the mosques are dead, apart from on Jummah, as you know, and Jummah is chaos. And the rest of the day, they're dead. So one day I was working there, and the contractors were there, and there was an old gentleman, English gentleman from the community, just standing on the gates of the mosque. He was just peering his head in. So I just walked over to him and I said, how are you, sir? And he goes, I'm just looking at the mosque and stuff. And I said, why don't you step in? Come have a look. I'm not trying to preach or convert. And he said, he felt like it was a barrier. There was no barrier, but he didn't have the courage to step into it. So then I stepped with him and I toured him around, and I just spoke to him as an architect. I didn't say to him, look, you know what, this is Islam and 5 pillars and you know what I mean, you got to fast Ramadan. I showed him around and he said, thank you so much. He said, it was a pleasure walking around and all that. And I've said many times to mosque committees, we should create a cafe in there to let people to come in. They're like, we're going to be a lot of fitna and facade and people are going to come, they're not dressed properly. And I said, look, that should be a part of the, on the boundary of the mosque, you should have places like that. There's even in the masjid itself, there's different areas. The mihrab is Zakaria and Surah Maryam Allah represents. That's even in the masjid, there's a gradient of spaces, just like there's a gradient of human beings. So the mosque should have those layers. Why do you put that barrier up on the outside? So having a public space is really important, that you're not in a mosque, you got public space, and renting it was really important because then it's like a business transaction. Because when you rent off somebody, there's no political or religious agenda.
Right.
When they 3 years later, they're like, we don't want to so when we go to Lanesborough or we go to these hotels, we pay the rent and we use it. Whereas in these other Muslim spaces, when the chairman's had a row at home or something, he might throw you out. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And then like you've done 4 years work and all of a sudden the whole thing's gone to pot, or even the eye socks. They just like change, do that. So public space was important for that reason, accessible. The second one I think it is very prophetic to be in public spaces. There's an ayah in Surah Furqan where the people of Mecca say to the Prophet, and God records like they say, Mali hadha Rasul, yakulu at'am wa yamshi fil aswaq. They say, what type of messenger is this? He eats food, are you like us? And he walks in the marketplace. And if you look at the commentary, Razi says, him walking in the marketplace is a good thing. He should be walking in the marketplace. That's the job of a messenger. He shouldn't be sitting like, in his ivory tower, so to speak, he's in Oxford. He needs to be in the marketplace. We don't even understand what a marketplace is. We think it's just going to Westfield. And we put a stall up there. Marketplace means where the people are, Park Lane's a marketplace, Covent Garden's a marketplace, Canary Wharf's a marketplace. All these, the educational hub is a marketplace. So you need to be in those spaces. So for us, it was like we need to move into this central space that's kind of like important. And we need to put something in there that's got like different functions, it's multifunctional. So you can have a cafe, so people can come into on the ground floor. You can do meaningful research. If people are visiting the city, like imagine if superstars like yourself are kind of flying in, and we've got like other, like this, the Royal Institute of Architects or Oxford Cambridge Club.
Right.
That's a model, isn't it, for you?
It is, yeah.
You can go and do some work there. If you want to rent a room,
there's a room for you to stay in.
There's a room to stay in. You want to do an important business meting, you can take people there.
You can host there.
Yeah, you don't have to go to Costa and sit there, you know what I mean? So we should have an institute like that, shouldn't we? That and all that energy is kind of flowing in, flowing out is coming. And also you're having that cross-fertilization.
Yes.
Otherwise it goes back to that community. It's the same type of people meeting all the time. You want people that your skills, my skills, you've come from a different part of the world, you're going to give a different flavor, So I think that's why we need that institute, that we can kind of bring all these things together, really. Sorry, that was, again, long-winded again, wasn't it?
No, I love it. I love it. Okay, and now we're fundraising for the institute. The link will be in the description box if anyone wants to help us. But, okay, you'll be pleased to know we're getting to the end. And a final question. What would be your parting message to the youth today when it comes to the Quran and how to maintain that beautiful relationship?
But that's a really hard question, isn't it? No, advice is a hard thing anyway. I need advice. Honestly, I'm not just saying that rather than giving advice. My thing is always the youth have a lot of energy. They want to do things quickly. They want to have a lot of impact. They want to do things, so that's the things that are normally driving them. The wisdom you learn from the elders and for us, real elders are like the great prophets that came before us. Things happen slowly, but through doing something consistently. So to the youth, my thing would be is like, I know it's hard to do this, but think long term and do something regularly. So with the Quran, it's no one saying like read 1 juz a day, and if 1 juz a day is like hard, you just read a little bit, like, every day if you can. If that's hard, I'd even say forget that. Actually, just at Jummah, when you go to Jummah, just pick up an English translation on, Surah Taha, Surah Qasas, or Surah Shu'ara, and just read a paragraph every single week. And even if you don't see any benefit in it, just say, I'm going to do this. There's a lot of things we do without benefit,
Yeah.
Just do it, and then you watch after 40 is a really special number in Islam. Do it 40 times and try and do it consistently, and you watch spiritually how that will increase your attachment to it, and it'll start growing. And I've seen it in my life. I'm an architect, like you said, and this was supposed to be a small part-time thing, and it's just it becomes addictive and it's passionate, and it just takes over your life. Now I have to kind of like hold myself back from it, So that's it. You don't get that over going to like a weekend course. It's slow, regular, engagement. So yeah, attach to the stories in the Quran. Attached to the great prophets. Everyone knows about, the haircut of this great football star and that and this and that. The real greats are the great prophets. So Moses, Jesus, Abraham, Noah that we studied, our prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the greatest of them all, is they should read stories about him.
Well, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much.